Okay, children. So, once again, good morning. Today, we'll have a recap of the poem. I told you this is a very important poem, favorite with the examiners. Which poem? Let's do the summary of the poem Childhood once again. So, this is a revision, okay, a recap. Let's have a recap. Okay, now the recap of stanza 1. Childhood has for centuries been considered by poets as a blissful period of one's life. Yeah, childhood actually is supposed to be the best stage of one's life. Once you cross that stage, you become an adult, then step into old age and all that. What happens? It is human tendency. We cherish those days of our childhood, that is childhood days, because childhood days are such when you're so free, so innocent. You run around with your friends, you play with your friends, you laugh with your friends. Every moment you enjoy, because children are free from all sorts of tension, all sorts of worries. So that is the best period. Best, and that is why it is considered as a blissful period of one's life. Now, in this poem, the poet exhibits his curiosity to know when an individual ceases to be a child. Now, here in this poem, the poet wonders, he's so curious to know. Curious to know what? That when did I cease to be a child? Where did he's rather searching for his childhood. See, throughout the poem, that particular question is repeated and repeated and repeated. That is why in my previous session I told you about repetition. So that particular phrase, sentence is repeated throughout. Why? Because the poet is wondering, he's searching for his lost childhood. The process of growing up from a child to an adolescent and an adult is an inevitable one. Yes, one has to face all these stages of life: childhood, adulthood, old age, death. These are some of the stages everyone has to go through. It is inevitable, means it is unavoidable. Human beings cannot avoid these stages of life. So there is no line of demarcation between the various stages of life. Every individual, every human being has to pass through all these stages of life. The poet begins the poem by putting forth his question to himself. Throughout is asking that question to himself only. He wonders, when did his childhood leave him and where could it be found now? He wonders if it was the day he ceased to be 11. That means he stepped into adulthood. Or was it the time he realized that heaven and hell could not be located on the maps? Yes, you take out a map, world map, whatever map, you try to locate this. Do you get it anywhere? No. So hell and heaven cannot be located on the maps. It is nowhere to be found in geography. Now, as he matures, he realizes that they do not exist in the maps. He does not actually exist at all. Yes, so he realizes that they do not exist in this world. It is only one's imagination. These things are imaginary places. It is only the belief of the people. As I told you, you do good deeds, you go to heaven. After death, you do bad deeds, you go to hell. So it is just the imagination of the people, belief of some people. That's all. Stanza 2. In the second stanza, the poet reiterates the same question. I told you, children, he keeps asking the same question again and again. What? He's wondering, where did my childhood go? When did my childhood go? So throughout the poem, this question is repeated. When a child develops a new perception with which he is able to see through the hypocrisy of adults, that is the day when he loses his childhood, because he himself steps into what? Adulthood. Now, adults, they talk of love and preach of love, but in actuality, they are double-faced. They just talk of love, but they do not practice it in their deeds, in their actions. So that is what is the meaning of what? Hypocrisy. In the third stanza, the poet is pondering over the same question, wonders if it was the day when his personality acquired certain individuality, when he realized that his mind was his own and he was capable of producing thoughts that were his own, devoid of any form of bias or influence. His thoughts are not influenced by anybody else's. Now he is conscious of his own separate identity. What is his identity? He's a grown-up now. He's an adult now. He has every right to make his own decisions. His decisions, his thoughts need not be influenced by anybody else's thoughts or decisions. So that is all about adulthood. Now we move on to stanza 4. The poet concludes the poem by expressing his regret at the loss of his childhood, which was a beautiful period of his life. No, you just cannot regret about it, because it is a stage through which you have to pass. Every individual has to go through that particular stage. And one day you have to lose that particular thing. What? Childhood. He comes to the conclusion that it has gone to some forgotten place. The recollection of it has faded away with the passage of time. Perhaps it has gone to the innocent face of a child. Yes, he'll be able to see it in some other child. Here the poet creates a lovely image of an infant's face. See, look at a small child's face, baby's face, so innocent, so beautiful. Yes, he conveys the idea that innocence of childhood remains only as long as one is infant, as long as one is small. You lose it gradually as you grow up. There is a tinge means touch of optimism in this thought. At least innocence and purity of mind prevails in some form or the other on this earth. Yes, prevails in some form or the other. In whom? It prevails in all the infants, all the small children. Why? Because all small children are said to be very pure at heart, and in their minds also they are free from all sorts of bad things, bad thoughts, bad ideas. Therefore they are said to be absolutely innocent. So children, now if we summarize this poem, what do we find? We see that basically here the poet is searching, wondering where his childhood is lost. That is the most important thing in the poem. And does he get an answer to this? Of course he does get an answer. The day he realizes that he is able to think rationally, logically, he realizes that that is a time that he has lost his childhood, he has lost his innocence. And when he sees that the world is full of hypocrisy, especially the adults, they do not preach. They do not practice what they preach. He realizes that he too is an adult and he too has every right to think on his own, to decide his own things. So that day he realizes that he has lost his childhood. But then he cherishes his own childhood. How? When he looks at an infant's face, he remembers what? His own childhood. So that is all about the poem, children. I'm sure you must have noted down the summary. If you have not noted down, please note down the summary. Very important. It will help you in revising at the time of examination. Very important. Don't forget to note down the summary. Yes, children? So that's all for this session. Thank you. Goodbye.